Tennessee is victorious in the Citrus Bowl, 35-0 over Iowa. This is Eric Kane, Brent Hubbs, and Austin Price. It is your post-game mini-pod, but also it's going to be your Volquest podcast. I want a big thanks to Exterior Home Solutions for allowing us to do this coverage. Local trusted since 1999. That is Exterior Home Solutions. Boys, I think we thought that Tennessee needed to score enough because we didn't think Iowa was going to score an awful lot. Turns out Tennessee got 2 touchdowns in the second quarter, set up with a short field there to begin the third, had a touchdown, had a pick 6 from James Pierce, and then one there in the final fourth quarter. There was plenty of offense in a game where there was a lot of sacks, a lot of punts, but more than anything, this is just a total domination by Tennessee, Austin.
Yeah, Tennessee, you knew coming in Iowa was a struggle bus. And I said this the whole month. This is a lose-lose for the defense. If they don't do anything, you go, well, it's Iowa. And if Iowa actually does something, everybody goes, it's Iowa. So, I mean, you went out and you did what you were supposed to do. Brent said this on the 2-minute drill, and it's so right. After the shank punt by Jackson Ross that gave Iowa the ball at the 45, they get a couple of first downs there in position inside the 5, ready to score a touchdown, Brent, and Andre Turntine steps up. Now, the quarterback made an awful throw, but Turntine steps up with an interception. From that point, Iowa just had nothing. And you could feel like it was deflating to them, and they come up with 0 points. And do you realize they've not scored a touchdown since the second quarter of the Nebraska game, which was their last game of the regular season? So 10 quarters on that. They've not scored a point in 8.
Yeah, I mean, they're a best offensively. Okay, I mean they just are. Yeah. Quarterback's not very good. Not trying to be mean to Deacon Hill, but he's late getting his head around on bootlegs. And, I mean, the sack he took that Tyree West had for about 18 yards.
I could have chased him down.
I mean, well, you're outside the tackle box. Just throw the ball away.
And that was on first down,
yeah,
too.
I mean, so listen, Austin's right. The defense was not in a win-win deal here. It was basically a lose-lose. I mean, if they, nobody is sitting here going, hey, this defense is suddenly great now, right? Like they've got it all fixed. And there's plenty of things that this defense has to work on. But you did what you had to do. You play the opponent in front of you. Turrentine steps in front, makes a good play. He's stumbling, really good concentration, good hands, big play in the game there. And it really, Tennessee from that point on, if you take out the backup quarterback who had never played before, that they let him run it 5 times.
On 4th and 15.
They let him scramble around. If you take that out, they don't rush for 50 yards in the game. And so, solid day by the defense, did what you needed to do. My biggest takeaway is just how clean this game was played on the offensive side of the ball from a management standpoint. We'll get to pass protection. But you didn't burn a timeout because you were ready to have a delay game penalty. You didn't burn a timeout because receivers were looking at the quarterback going, what are we doing? It was one of those deals. The mechanics and the operation of it was really good for a first-time starter. We watched the Oklahoma game. I think Jackson Arnold's got a lot of talent, right?
Yep.
But he was, he threw it all. He was lost in the first quarter.
Yep.
Now he came back and did some things, but it was too fast for him. Nothing about this game and this win was too fast for Nico, which is a great foundation point for this offense and for Nico moving forward.
Yeah, let's not bury the lead here. Let's talk Nico, and we'll hit on everything else. Austin, as Brent just pointed out, I thought nothing was too big for him. I loved he's just got, and we knew this coming in over the little bit that we saw, he has just got great awareness in the pocket. There was a couple of times you wanted to get the ball out a little bit quicker, but he kind of knew where people were. He knew where to step up. He knew where to tuck it and run. Through the air, didn't have to do an awful lot, but he had one bad throw, but behind a receiver over the middle. But I didn't think that he was awful through the air. He just didn't have to do an awful lot because Tennessee could run the football. Tennessee had 2 penalties on its first possession, wasn't on Nico. 3 penalties overall in the football game. Really, really good. And those 2 back-to-back, touchdown leading drives in the second quarter where Tennessee really took control of the football game was huge. Long, sustaining drives, couple passes, nice running. I was really impressed with how Nico performed today, obviously, 4 total touchdowns. But as Brent said, managed the offense, looked in control. And again, I understand Iowa played in a crappy division, but you gave up less than 2 touchdowns per game, and Nico wasn't fazed by anything with that defense today.
No, and 3 total penalties. 2 of them were basically back to back with the holding penalty and then the false start on Cooper. This was a young man who, again, you go back to high school, you go back to the way he handled himself at the Polynesian Bowl. The moment's never too big. It's just not. It's like the kid. I don't want to compare him to LeBron James because I think that's not fair. But
you
like
think?
well, but what I'm saying though is
One game
my correlation. No. My correlation though is LeBron walked in with the weight of the world on him, and all he did was perform. Right, It never was too big for him. Nico walked in with the weight of the world on him. I mean, he walks in the door. I mean, ever since he got here in November of 2021 for the Vanderbilt game, every time he came to campus, it was a thing, right? Like, I mean, at the basketball game, 2 months later, 3 months later, they're chanting his name, and, he commits in March of that year and in 22, and every time he comes in town, he's out on the lake and he's surrounded by people, and he's, at the ice cream shop down on Gay Street and he's surrounded by people. I mean, and he just kind of rolls with it, and he's most humble, nice kid. I mean, I've been around a lot of kids in 20 years, and Hubs has done doing it longer than I have. And there's a lot of great kids. Don't get me wrong, but to have the spotlight on him the way he's had it on him, the way he handles himself, to me, it makes him the ultimate teammate, Brent. Like, I mean, yeah, he was the MVP. I sit there and listened to his teammates, and he was trying to give them the MVP trophy, and they were like, "No, it's yours. You earned it. You earned it." Now, all seriousness aside, I voted for James Pierce for the MVP because he turned the game. Sure. It was never really in doubt, but in a 7-play stretch, as you said, he flipped the thing around. But I mean, like, Nico just handled himself just so cool, calm, and collected. Can you imagine what it's like? And we talked about this on the 2-minute drill too. When you get to Norman, Oklahoma, when you're playing in Charlotte in a neutral site game against NC State, when you're playing in Arkansas, to begin next year, because I mean that's going to be the start of the season, really. 3 massive games at either a neutral site or on the road. I just don't think it's going to phase him.
Well, and I think that is I think, Eric, that's the takeaway from me. There's a lot. I mean, look, you can go back and watch. There's some receivers he missed. There's some throws he wishes. I'm sure he wished had. There's lots of those things. But the takeaway here, and we joked about it, it was either going to be boom or bust, right? Heisman campaign or whatever. And it's really not any of that. The takeaway for me is the baseline of this. The talent is very evident and very clear. The mental makeup appears to be really, really good and a great foundation to really build and grow from this game into this offseason, into spring practice, fall camp, and into next season. What does it equate to? What does it mean on the field? He's got to have plenty of help develop around him and all those things. But what we've seen is you can't win in football without good quarterback play. You just can't. I don't care where you're at. Okay, even these teams in the NFL that are playing backups, right? The ones that are winning are getting good quarterback play, right? I mean, the Packers are in a position to get in the playoff because of what Jordan Love has become this year. My point is, you can't win without good quarterback play. Tennessee has the potential to have some really good quarterback play with this guy moving forward.
Well, and good quarterback play cures a lot of ills.
Mm-hmm.
It cures a lot of ills. Now, you got to protect the quarterback to make sure he's in the game to cure a lot of those ills, which they didn't do a fantastic job.
No, they did an
today.
awful job.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be.
I was trying to put lipstick on.
No,
6 sacks in this football game. I thought. Now Tennessee had 5 sacks on the other side, but 6 sacks for Iowa. I thought Tennessee's tackles. Tennessee ran for 232.
I thought the tackles is where they really were bad.
I was going to say, I thought Tennessee's tackles, whether it was Davis, whether it was Mincy, whether it was Crawford or whoever, just not good. Of course, the interior at points and times was not good either. But Brent, I thought the tackle struggled.
Yeah, I thought they. I mean, my surprise was they missed a couple of running back pass pros.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly what the call was, so it's hard for me to say. But there was one sack that the middle linebacker got, and like if the guy's coming in the hole as a running back, you
got to step up.
You either got to not touch him and get out to be the free release, or you got to square up and hit the guy. You're not chipping there or are touching him and then sliding out. But when they rushed 4, particularly early in the game, Iowa got home way too frequently off the edge. And I think they have some solid players. I don't know that they have elite pass rushers off the edge. Okay, I mean, they don't have a lot of guys that are going to translate to playing Saturdays in the SEC off the edge from a speed standpoint. That has to be addressed, whether that's development, whether that's personnel, whatever the case may be. They have got to improve that moving forward. I do think Tennessee wanted to take some shots. I think there was an opportunity Tennessee might have been able to take some better shots, deeper shots down the field. But it became very clear you weren't going to be able to protect well enough to take those shots other than the one that they took to Keaton, and that was after the run game had hit them for 4 or 5 plays. So those tackles have to improve dramatically.
I was going to say, and those tackles, Gerald Mincey, Dane Davis could be a big role for you in 2024. So obviously they got to get a whole lot better. I will say this, pass blocking not great, Austin. Run blocking was great. 232. Tennessee hits its season average essentially a little bit over. Quarterback design runs. You had the draw for the first touchdown. Good block by Dylan Sampson. That was a good play. You had the quarterback sweep essentially for the second touchdown. I thought run blocking there was a lot to like, and obviously Nico using his legs, not just scrambling, but using his legs in the design run was a big part of this football game.
Yeah, again, I liked what they did. They got under center and short yardage a few times. I like that. They had a lead blocker. I mean, I liked a lot of what they did in the running game. I love what Cam Seldon brings. Again, still runs a little too high on the 4th down.
Tiptoed in there. You got to go.
In there.
You got to go.
But you know what? That's his first real game action.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, if you told me going in he's going to do what he did today, and I kind of had high hopes. Again, Jerry Mack, very, very big fan of Cam Seldon. But you can build on that. I mean, heading into next year, he gets a whole nother spring. I think you should be excited about that. And then, again, I think Peyton Lewis is going to be a guy that people are talking about in spring practice. So that running back position, along with Dylan Sampson, I think it's easy to kind of get excited about that group. And the offensive line, should be a little more complete. Spraggs will be back. John Campbell should be back. Should have a different feel. Now, again, since we're sitting here talking, be interested to see in the next 4 days.
That's right.
Any of these kids that have transferred before, do they make a play to go somewhere else to try to cash in on a bigger NIL check or just to change the scenery because they're not, they're not happy here. I don't know. Maybe nobody leaves, but it's something you have to monitor for the next 4 days.
Well, coaches are heading home. And that's what they're worried about.
Yeah.
You're not going home to bask in the glow. You're going to spend the next 4 days making sure your roster is in good shape. I tell you who, and this is why you're hoping that he hits in transfer portal. A guy who got a lot better this year and became an integral part of their run game success, and I thought had a really solid day today, was McCollum Castles as a lead blocker. Holden Stays has got to hit. Ethan Davis has got to grow and become more physical. That H-back role, the way they play Castle as an H-back a lot, I thought was a big part of their run game success most of the year. But I thought he had a really nice close to the season, and I thought he played well in this bowl game.
McCollum Castles had a hell of a year. If Holden, you want to grow on that. He wasn't perfect, especially at points in times at the beginning of the season. But he had a great year, AP. If Holden Stays can come in here and give you what McCollum Castles gave you and then build on that for a year to come, that's huge. That's a home run. But
he said after the game, he was talking to the media, and it was kind of after his time was done, and he said Holden Stays had asked him, how long did it take you?
Yeah.
And he goes, till the end of spring practice before I felt comfortable. He goes, because the tempo stuff is, if you're not used to it, and let's face it, Notre Dame is walking to the line like a snail. It's going to be drastically different for Holden Stays, when he actually goes out there for a practice. So, I'm with you guys. I think, they'll miss him.
That position is so important.
Yeah.
It is so important for what they do in the run game. It's a vital piece.
Well,
they've got to find the answer there.
And it's not just Holden Stays. They're going to need Ethan Davis to take a big step. I'm going to get on my high horse.
He was a receiver in high school.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, like the blocking side of things is something he's got to, work on, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and they need him to have a real straight buy-in because they need him to be 1A to 1B with holding stays. And but I mean, here we are again today. I mean, like they were up 28-0, and like I thought they missed some real opportunities to get guys in the football game.
We saw Jalen Smith, we saw Christian Harrison, saw John Slaughter a little bit.
Jordan Matthews played the last 4 minutes,
Yeah.
but he should have played before then. Like Gabe Jeudy-Lally was out there when they were up 28-0.
Yeah.
What are you doing, Willie and Tim Banks? Like, I mean, like, and I would be frank with these guys to their face. Like, this is not just me talking on a podcast. Like, what the guy was done. The game was over. Like, it's the fourth quarter. What are you doing?
They weren't scoring 28 points for the next 48 hours. I mean, it just wasn't going to happen.
I mean, like, I don't grasp it. Like, Ethan Davis, like, should have saw action before. I don't even know if he got in the game. To be honest with you.
He did.
At the end, okay.
I think
I was going down the field.
I think a little bit of the Ethan Davis thing was you were having such a hard time protecting that you're needing a little extra help there.
And that's fair.
That they
right?
were worried a little bit about because you're still playing Nico at that moment, and he was getting hit quite a bit. I'm not saying that's right. I'm saying I think
but
that
it's
was
fair.
probably
What you're saying
part
is
of their
fair.
thought process.
That is fair. But like, look at running back. Jerry has worked in Cam Selden any moment he can during the season. Like anytime he can get him in there, and he's got 3 running backs. Like for that position, like if you're going to a 4th guy, so he's worked him in enough to like where you felt comfortable today out there, right? BJ has worked in. I mean, Jalen Smith hadn't really played all year. He's out there today, and it was still a quote game at that point.
14-0. He was on the field when James Pierce made the sack. I think. I think he was on the field.
That's right, because it was down here on the goal line. Again, Rodney plays the young D lineman. BJ plays the young linebackers. And what happened? Those positions are better for it. The secondary coaches have got to do better. Like there's no rhyme or reason that you should be doing what you're doing. Like that's maddening. And honestly, if I'm one of those parents of those young DBs, if I'm those young DBs in general, I'm not happy, man. Like I mean, like and that's a real point of contention for me because again, it's not I expected them to start or play in the first quarter. You had Gabe Jeudy-Lally and you had Jalen McCullough out there when you're up 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Like that makes not any sense to me.
Let's stay on the offensive end real quick. Brent, you were playing Iowa. Iowa plays, 2 tight ends, 2 receivers, 2 backs, big boy football. Tennessee on a couple of occasions on 4th down, short yardage, came out I formation, came out 2 tight ends, came out one time full house backfield. What do you think kind of went into that? I mean, we've seen Tennessee do a little bit of that, some offset I at points in times last year. We've seen them a little bit throughout the 3 years kind of get funky, but saw it a couple of times today, I formation, 2 tight ends, multiple backs in the backfield. I mean, what do you think kind of went into that?
I mean, evaluation of your short yardage stuff when you did a self-scout at the end of the year, maybe. I don't know. Does Nico feel better under center than Joe? I don't know. I don't have any idea.
I mean, it's weird.
Look, I mean, you know my stance on shotgun on short yardage situations, so I'm not going to preach on that deal. I think you should do it more. Okay, I liked what they did there. I think that's something that you need to look at, always having in your ability is in short yardage. Now, there were a couple of times I thought Nico should have just sneaked it because there was nobody over the center. I'm like, dude, you're going to get 3 yards without getting touched. That should be kind of an automatic, hit the center and the rear end and let's go type deal because Iowa did not have it covered up. They didn't have Cooper covered up there. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it's personnel. Maybe they felt like because Iowa didn't rotate a lot of personnel, they wouldn't necessarily go heavy there and they could do something. I don't have a good answer for that. But, to their credit, Tennessee showed a nice wrinkle there, and I think that wrinkle should always be in your playbook and a part of what you do in short yardage situations.
Defensively, I thought Elijah Herring had a really nice game. I thought
perfect setup for him, though. This game, I said it on the pregame show.
We said it on 2-minute drill.
2-minute drill.
Like, the happiest guy in the locker room today was Elijah Herring when he came out because it's like, you know what? I got to worry about
hit ball, baby.
I got to worry about a slow tight end on a drag at worst, or I'm just downhill in the box playing a run game, which is tailor-made for me.
Thought this was a game for Elijah Simmons, and he flashed as well. But obviously the guy I want to talk about, and we'll kind of end here in the next few minutes. And again, we've mentioned a couple of times. I mean, James Pierce was incredible. responsible for 2 touchdowns, had a pick 6, of course, but he had the strip sack that set up the 2-yard run, the third touchdown for Nico to go 21-0. I mean, he is dynamic, Brent. He is electric. He started the year off really strong. He ended the year off really strong. I mean, we're talking, if he can keep this up and even take another step, we're talking about an All-American next year.
Well, I mean, he's the guy that
Well, he was borderline that this year.
Yeah,
I mean, if he hadn't slowed it towards the end of the year,
he's got to stay mentally locked in all the time, stay glued
Contract
in,
year.
and go, right? And he needs to have another really good off season. He needs, and obviously you got to stay healthy and move forward. The thing about him that's unique is his ability to play in space at his size is not the most common thing in the world. He is not going to be, in my opinion, when you see the scouting grade on him, and he'll be talked about this all season because underclassmen will be, chatters about that he's not a one-trick pony. And I think that's the most fascinating thing about his game, because he's not just a straight third down edge speed rush guy. I think he's got more power than you think. He can play the run pretty decent. He can play obviously in open space, as we saw today. He's a different kind of cat that I think that everybody in the country is going to be in love with. He's got to stay locked in, focused to continue to grow and improve. But he's got unbelievable upside potential and talent.
And he alters the game, even when he doesn't get home. The attention that he requires.
It's different. Yeah, it's different.
It makes everybody around him better. Because all of a sudden, they're getting solo matchups. Next year in theory, right?
You know who made Robert Mathis' career? Dwight Freeney.
No doubt.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, we talk about it all the time. Shut down corners, right? Those guys are elite. That's what everybody's looking for. The other position on defense everybody's looking for is they want a difference maker off the edge. I mean, that's what they want.
Quarterbacks,
and he can do it.
Protect the quarterback, and guys that can get to the quarterback.
Yep, and that's it.
Everybody else is kind of just the same.
I mean, I just think that he just has so much upside. Now you need Josephs to come with him. You need
Caleb Herring to have a big spring.
Caleb Herring to come with him there and build and do some things. I mean, there's a lot of pieces there to work with. I think the one thing we learned from last year's bowl game is you just don't go too far on where somebody's going to be. But again, there's a lot of pieces on this team that if you can get some guys healthy and some guys can develop, they should be good in their front seven next year. I like them athletically. I think Jordan Thomas is a really good football player. I really do.
Got to keep him healthy.
I mean, he's got to stay healthy. He's got to get bigger, stronger, and all those things. I think he's got a lot of good instincts back there and could be a really nice piece for them in the secondary. There's a lot of things to work with, which is an encouraging sign. But both sides of the ball need to grow and need to improve in some critical areas.
Again, I will continue to reiterate, next year you're going to have a deeper secondary. Much like,
I don't know about that. I mean, you just lost 7 guys. You were deep this year. You're almost too deep this year.
You were too deep this year.
But yes, but it
meaning more than 2 players.
What I'm saying is that
you're more talented in your depth. You're more athletic.
That's
in
my
your
point.
Depth. Okay,
that's my point. It's like you're going to have, in theory, like the 3 soon-to-be sophomore or redshirt freshman corners, right? Got to see them keep building up. Jermod McCoy. You just referenced Jordan Thomas. You obviously like the kid that you brought in from MTSU.
Jacoby Thomas.
Tennessee is going to host the young man from Temple coming up Wednesday, the 3rd. He'll be in town. That's news. And so I just feel like they're a. See, I think there was bodies. I mean, Tennessee's got a lot of bodies on the offensive line. Are they a deep offensive line? Like there was bodies in the secondary. I wouldn't call them a deep.
But the difference is,
secondary.
Warren Burrell had started for 4 years. You're talking about bodies on the offensive line that have never played.
Don't even have a clue what they are.
Burrell had. I mean, that was my point from the depth standpoint.
Yeah.
They were 2 or 3 deep there. Now,
better
again,
quality
they're
depth.
more athletic.
Better quality.
No, that's not a debate. They're definitely more athletic moving forward.
Last thing, 30 seconds or less. Into year 3, 8-4, not what you want to get that, but into year 3, you have an 11-win season, an Orange Bowl victory. You have a 9-win season. You win at the Citrus Bowl. It feels like, and I'm not saying Tennessee has arrived, because clearly there's a long way to go in certain areas, recruiting, some development, all that type of stuff. But Tennessee's in a good spot, right, Brent?
Well, you feel like you're in a good spot because you got a quarterback for the future.
Yeah.
There's no discussion this offseason who your quarterback's going to be. None. Okay? You feel like you're in a good spot because your defensive front seven should be better next year than it was this year because you're bringing everybody back.
And Arion Carter, T. Lander,
Right.
they all should be
everybody,
better.
and Caleb Herring should step in and be better, and Hobbs should be better, and you're going to get Weathersby, and so my point.
That's the one they're all.
So my point being, you feel good there, you feel good about the quarterback. The question I've got with this team this offseason, can they fix pass protection? Okay, Can they improve that? I think they're going to be able to run the football because they've always been able to run the football, no matter who the offensive line seems to be. Can they pass protect? And where are the skill guys who are the scary guys? Who are the guys at the skill position on offense outside of Dylan Sampson that teams are going to go, wait a minute, we got a problem defending him? Because right now, I don't feel like there's anybody at that receiver spot that scares a defense. That's a concern I have with this team.
I think,
That's a lot longer than 30 seconds.
we have, and we took a big dump on the O-line's pass protection, and rightfully so. They weren't very good. But I think, too, part of the problem is the fact that Tennessee isn't really scary at wide receiver. The receivers they do have don't get great separation. There's no game changers. So thus, when you factor all that in, it's taking longer to get open. When you factor in longer to get open, and you're not as good at pass protection, that window of time for Nico slows, or it shrinks. So it means it's even a split second faster. So I think Mike Matthews, Braylon Staley, Chris Brazzell, Bruce back, potentially, we'll see, probably hear something in, here not too long, distant future. I think there's potential there for them to look different on offense in spring and into fall, because I do think the playmakers at receiver, we talk about quality depth. I think the quality depth at receiver is better in 24.
And the last thing I'll leave you with this is the one other takeaway from this game that I don't know anybody's talk or we're going to talk about. They played fast at times, and that tempo will help those skill guys because you can scheme up some guys open in tempo because the defense is confused. Their tongues are dragging. They're trying to get a call. The next thing you go, I like the fact that they showed some quick, fast tempo. I think they're going to get back to that with Nico leading the charge.
It was ugly at times, just like Iowa makes it. There was a lot of sacks. Tennessee had sacks. Tennessee gave up sacks. There was a ton of punts. But Tennessee absolutely dominates Iowa in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. Final score 35-0, finishing the 2023 season with a 9-4 record. And the start of the Nico era starts off with a bang. 4 total touchdowns for the former #1 overall prospect and the 5-star quarterback. We'll continue to break down this matchup all night long, all tomorrow. Everything and more over Volquest.com. For Brent Hubbs, Austin Price, I'm Eric Kane. This has been your post-game mini-pod and your Volquest podcast. Big thank you to Exterior Home Solutions for making this coverage possible.